Men rarely miss the red flags in women because they're blind. They miss them because they're hoping they're wrong. That's the truth most men will never admit out loud. When a man cares, really cares, he develops a dangerous habit. He gives benefit of the doubt long after the evidence says he shouldn't. He forgives too quickly, explains away bad behavior, and convinces himself that things will get better soon. And by the time he finally realizes what's happening, he's already emotionally invested. Too invested. Most men don't ignore red flags due to stupidity. They ignore them due to loyalty, due to hope, due to the belief that if they give enough love, enough patience, enough understanding, the problems will disappear, but they don't. And today, we're talking about the red flags men overlook until the damage is already done. Not the obvious ones, the subtle ones, the ones hidden beneath charm, affection, and early-stage compatibility. The ones that slowly drain a man's confidence, peace, and emotional strength. Let's start with the first one. 1. She only values your effort, not your person. There are women who love the things a man does, but not the man himself. She loves the attention. She loves the security. She loves the validation. She loves the consistency. She loves the emotional labor he provides. But ask yourself, does she love you, or does she love the way you make her feel? Most men don't notice this early on, because women like this are often very affectionate at the start. They appear warm, interested, and deeply connected. But watch closely. When the effort stops, her interest does too. Her affection dries up the moment you stop performing. Her kindness disappears when you stop giving. Her love shrinks when your utility drops. That isn't love. That's transactional attachment. And men overlook this red flag because they feel needed. Being needed feels like being valued, but it's not the same. Being valued means you matter even when you're not useful. Being used means you matter only when you're providing. Many men don't realize this difference until they're emotionally depleted. 2. She needs constant reassurance, but gives none. Back in the beginning, it might feel sweet. She asks if you still love her, still want her, still find her attractive. It feels flattering, like she chooses you. But over time, it becomes clear. Her sense of worth depends entirely on your validation. And the moment you're tired, busy, or emotionally drained, she spirals. She becomes distant, or accusatory, or cold, or dramatic. Her reassurance needs grow, but she never fills yours. Most men overlook this because they think, she's just sensitive. She's been hurt before. She just needs time to trust. But here's the truth. If reassurance only flows one way, you're not in a relationship. You're in an emotional job, and eventually, men burn out. 3. She gets defensive instead of taking accountability. This is one of the biggest red flags men ignore. Bring up a concern, a feeling, a boundary. And instead of listening, she flips the script, blames you, minimizes your feelings, makes herself the victim, or says you're too sensitive. Most men tolerate this because they don't want to start an argument. They choose peace over self-respect. They let it slide once, then twice, then 10 times. Until suddenly, they're in a relationship where taking accountability never happens on her side. And men tell themselves, she didn't mean it. She was stressed. She'll understand later. This isn't a big deal. But it is a big deal. A woman who refuses accountability becomes a woman who refuses growth, and a relationship that stops growing starts dying quietly. 4. She uses vulnerability as a weapon, not a window. Some women cry, not to express emotion, but to control the situation. Some open up, not to bond, but to manipulate sympathy. Some share trauma, not to heal, but to justify bad behavior. This is one of the most invisible red flags because men naturally want to protect. Men respond to vulnerability with softness and loyalty. And some women, consciously or not, learn to exploit that. A woman's vulnerability should be a bridge, not a shield. A path to deeper intimacy, not a way to avoid accountability. But many men overlook this because they mistake vulnerability for purity, not realizing that even softness can be used for control. 5. She only communicates through emotion, not logic. There is nothing wrong with emotional expression, but when a woman uses emotion instead of communication, a man ends up feeling lost, confused, and constantly wrong. This looks like crying instead of explaining anger instead of clarity, silent treatment instead of conversation, mood swings instead of honesty. A man will try to understand. He will try to calm her, reassure her, fix things. But the truth is simple. You cannot build a stable relationship on unstable communication. Men overlook this red flag because they interpret emotional intensity as passion. But passion without regulation becomes chaos. And loving someone who refuses to communicate clearly becomes emotional punishment. A healthy woman doesn't expect you to read her mind. A healthy woman communicates. 6. Her standards are high, but her contribution is low. This is one of the most common red flags modern men ignore. She wants emotional maturity, financial stability, consistency, deep empathy, loyalty, ambition. But what does she offer in return? Sometimes nothing comparable, sometimes nothing at all. Her expectations for you are skyscrapers, but her effort is basement level. Men overlook this because men are natural providers. They feel proud when they rise to challenges. But a relationship is not a job interview, and you're not applying for a position in her life. If her standards require a man to be exceptional, yet she contributes the bare minimum, you're not her partner. You're her upgrade plan. And here is the brutal truth. Some women want high-value men without doing anything that makes them high-value themselves. This is a red flag men notice too late. 7. She keeps you responsible for her happiness. Men often miss this warning sign until they're already drained. She may say things like, "You make me feel this way. If you loved me, you'd do this. When you don't respond, I fall apart. You ruined my day." Her happiness becomes your responsibility. Her emotions become your job. Her well-being becomes your burden. And here's the trap. At first, it makes a man feel important, needed, meaningful. But over time, it becomes suffocating. Because no man, no matter how loving, strong, or devoted, can carry the emotional weight of two people. Men overlook this red flag because they confuse supporting her with saving her. But a woman who depends on you for emotional stability will eventually drain you of your own. 8. She competes with you instead of supporting you. A healthy partner grows with you. A competitive partner grows against you. Watch for subtle signs. When you succeed, she gets quiet. When you fail, she suddenly becomes expressive. When you share an accomplishment, she shifts the conversation back to herself. When you set a goal, she questions it before encouraging it. This is not partnership. This is rivalry wearing a romantic mask. Men ignore this red flag because they interpret it as personality, or independence, or harmless ego. It's not. A woman who competes with you cannot celebrate you. And a relationship without mutual celebration becomes a quiet battlefield. 9. She has double standards, that only benefit her. This is a red flag men spot too late because it starts small. She can vent. But when you express something, you're too sensitive. She can take space. But when you take space, you're cold. She can make mistakes. But when you do, it's a pattern. She can flirt with attention. But when you do, it's disrespectful. She can set boundaries. But yours are controlling. Double standards don't appear immediately. They reveal themselves as comfort grows. And men overlook them because they don't want conflict. But here's the truth. A woman who plays by two sets of rules is not building a relationship. She's building a hierarchy with herself at the top and you at the bottom. By the time a man realizes this, he has already internalized the belief that he must earn her approval while she gives him almost none in return. 10. Her interest peaks early, then drops without warning. This is one of the most painful red flags. At first, she is warm, engaged, affectionate. She listens, texts, compliments, shows excitement. Then suddenly, the energy shifts. She becomes distant, colder, less invested, less responsive, less affectionate. Men overlook this shift because they blame themselves. What did I do wrong? How do I fix this? How can I get her attention back? But here is the harsh truth. Her early interest was inconsistent with her true capacity for connection. The affection was real, but unsustainable. Some women love the idea of connection more than the reality of it. And men mistake early intensity for long-term compatibility. When she pulls back, it's not always about you. It's about her inability to maintain the emotional investment she started with. 11. She punishes you with withdrawal instead of communicating. A woman who is upset but refuses to communicate is not seeking resolution. She is seeking control. Her silence is not calm. It is calculated. This looks like disappearing emotionally, withholding affection, refusing eye contact, ignoring messages, giving one-word answers, acting distant until you figure it out. To a man, this feels like rejection. To her, it's a strategy. And men overlook this red flag because they assume she needs space, or time, or comfort. But what she is actually doing is training you to chase her every time she withdraws. This creates a dynamic where your peace depends entirely on her moods. By the time men notice this pattern, they are already conditioned to fix everything, even problems they didn't cause. 12. Her words are sweet, but her actions are inconsistent. This is the red flag that breaks men the most. She says she loves you, but rarely shows it. She says she supports you, but doesn't stand beside you. She says she cares, but only when it's convenient. She says she wants a future, but never moves toward one. Men ignore this because they cling to her words. They believe the promises. They trust her intentions. They want to think she means what she says. But consistency is the only real form of commitment. And a woman whose actions don't align with her words is a woman who will eventually leave you confused, drained, and doubting yourself. 13. She creates emotional chaos, then calls you cold. When you step back, some women create storms and then blame you for seeking shelter. These are the ones who pick fights out of nowhere, escalate minor issues, provoke emotional reactions, then call you emotionally unavailable when you don't respond the way they want. Men overlook this because they think staying calm is the right thing to do. But in her eyes, your calmness becomes indifference. Your distance becomes disrespect. Your silence becomes guilt. You cannot win a battle where the rules change every time you reach for peace. And the longer you stay in this dynamic, the more you start believing her version of reality. This is how emotionally stable men end up feeling unstable inside relationships filled with emotional volatility. 14. She doesn't respect your boundaries, but demands you respect hers. This red flag destroys men quietly. A woman who refuses to honor your boundaries is not just overstepping. She is announcing that your comfort, time, and emotional space matter less than hers. This looks like ignoring when you need space-pushing conversations. You're not ready for showing up unannounced, dismissing your limits, mocking your emotional needs, expecting immediate responses, accusing you of not caring enough whenever you try to set a boundary. Meanwhile, her boundaries are treated like sacred laws. Men ignore this because they think boundaries are selfish. But boundaries are not walls. They are doors. Healthy relationships respect the way they open and close. A woman who tramples your boundaries will eventually trample your identity. 15. She makes you feel responsible for her emotions. This is the red flag that keeps men stuck the longest. When she's upset, it's your fault. When she's insecure, you triggered it. When she's distant, you caused it. When she's angry, you should have known better. When she's overwhelmed, you didn't do enough. Her emotional world rotates around your behavior, and you spend more and more energy trying to keep her stable. But here's the tragedy. You cannot save someone who uses their emotions to control their environment. And the longer you try, the more you lose yourself in the process. Men ignore this red flag because they mistake responsibility for love. But love is not measured by how much suffering you can absorb. Love is measured by reciprocity, by balance, by partnership. When a woman makes you responsible for her emotional storms, your life becomes weather you cannot predict. And one day, you wake up realizing you've been walking on emotional eggshells for months, maybe years. Men don't overlook red flags because they are naive. They overlook them because they care deeply. They hope things will improve. They believe love can fix what behavior cannot. They think patience will create change. They don't want to lose someone they invested in. They value loyalty more than self-protection. But here's the truth. Every man eventually learns. Red flags don't go away. They grow. And the longer you ignore them, the more you lose. Your confidence, your peace, your direction, your emotional safety, your sense of self, and sometimes your entire identity. Men often leave relationships not because they stopped loving, but because they finally saw what they should have seen at the beginning. A woman with red flags is not a challenge. She is a warning. A warning that you recognize too late. A warning that cost you your emotional well-being. A warning that taught you a lesson you will never forget. And once a man learns it, he never overlooks the signs again.